Hello and welcome to The Right Space, dear listeners, a podcast where we breathe, dream, create, and inspire. And my guest today is one of the funniest people I have met on LinkedIn. He is the self proclaimed king of Pinpoint, which, in case you didn't know, if you've been like under a rock for the past couple of months, is a game. Yes, LinkedIn now has games. Contrary to popular belief, it is actually an excellent way for you to grow your network and develop your business. So, without further ado, help me to welcome Richard Liberman. Welcome,
Thank you
Richard.
very much.
Could you tell
Hi,
us a bit about yourself?
hi, I'm Richard, the self-proclaimed king of Pinpoint. That's not actually my official introduction. I'm just using it now because nobody else can say it. I'm based in the UK. I am a brand consultant. I also work as a professional coach and mentor. And I'm very, very lucky. I have worked on projects and brands all around the world. And now I get to do what I love, which is to help people. And, I do actually believe on LinkedIn you can have a laugh and a giggle, which I know goes against the grain, but it is possible
I hear you.
sometimes.
No, I hear you. It is possible. And like you said a moment ago before we started recording, it is okay to laugh. I think people were in such an uproar when they introduced the laughing, like even the reaction with the
Yeah.
laughing face. Why do you think that is? Why do people take themselves so seriously?
It kind of reminds me of that Batman film when the Joker goes, "Why so serious?" And I think there's a little bit with social media. And I think a lot of people forget to be social. And don't get me wrong, I use LinkedIn for business, has helped me share my message. It's brought me incredible clients, amazing friendships, and connections with people all over the world. And I think there is sometimes a little bit where people go, "Oh, it's not Facebook for business." I think there is a little bit where I probably fall a little bit into that camp. However, if you think about every business you've ever worked on or in or with, there's still moments where you have a laugh and a giggle. And I think it's one of those ones where, it's normal life. And what's
Mm.
really interesting is, I like it when people engage on posts and actually want to get to know me. And I think one of the things on LinkedIn, isn't it annoying when somebody connects with you and you're like, "Oh, I've got a new connection." And they immediately start selling to you, "Hello, I've got this widget that will change your website forever." Come on, at least get to know me. Buy me a drink before you're going to sell to me. Like, come on.
Yeah, I hear you. Those, to be honest, I never really got those messages until I started this podcast. And now it seems like they're everywhere. And it's all people wanting to help me with my YouTube channel.
That's very nice of them.
It
And I'm
is
sure
very nice of them.
for $500 a month, they can change your life.
I suppose if I wanted them to. But like I like what you said about the like every business is the same, and this is kind of advice that I give to people who are like, I'm really awesome at this thing and I want to try LinkedIn, but like it's so different. It's like at the end of the day, it's like people buy from people. If they like you and they get to know you, then and they like what you're about and it happens to like meet their need at a time when they actually want to buy from you or they're actually looking to buy, then like that same thing happens whether you're on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or like in the real world
Oh, completely.
marketing. Not that it's not the real world.
Completely right. And there's that old marketing adage of how do you build know, like, and trust? And it sometimes annoys me where people are, "I'm being really authentic today." What, you mean you've not been authentic the rest of the time? We were really? And I think it's one of those words, and I know some of my friends will be listening to this and some of my colleagues will be, and they'll be like, "Oh no, you said the A word." And I think if anybody says, "Oh, I'm being authentic," it makes me worried. But you can say it about other people. So sometimes I'll look at LinkedIn and I'll see somebody that's written a post. I know that AI has written it, and I'll think, that's not very authentic. But then I'll see
Mm.
somebody that shares a story or something that really connects. And I think, oh, that's very authentic. But if anybody says that they're being authentic, I get a little nervous. I think, really? And I think when you go back to the idea of having a laugh and a giggle at work, why wouldn't you do that on LinkedIn?
Mm.
And that's not to say that, every day and I know there'll be some people listening that'll check my LinkedIn profile and go, well, hang on a second, he's done some really serious posts, or he's done like a really educational post here. Absolutely, of course I will, because I treat it the same as I'm in work. So there's times where, I will do serious posts with a serious message that are either, it's there to help educate and inspire people. And then there's other times where I'll let my hair down. Let my hair down, I'm bald, but figuratively speaking, I'll let my hair down and I will have a laugh and a giggle, whether that's on Pinpoint or on other people's posts in a respectful way, the same as what I would do at work. But you know what? It's okay to be social on social media.
So what tips would you give someone who's like, okay, you say be social on social media, but what exactly does that look like?
I think it's having a conversation like you would do in any work environment. So there's certain passions and hobbies and interests that I've got, and I'll quite happily talk about them, whether it's sport or music or, in a business sense, I love brands. So there's certain brands I get really excited about, and just striking up a conversation. And I think it's one of those ones where I almost feel like the more connected the world's become, the more disconnected we've become from actually having a conversation.
Yeah. That's a weird thing.
And I think it's something that can change. I mean, how fantastic that we're on two different continents having a chat. I think that's wonderful. And, this evening I'm going to be on my networking group with people from all over the world. And by listening and having conversations, we grow our knowledge and our interests. And I think there's so much wisdom and knowledge and fun and interesting people to meet. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Like, the world is a beautiful place, and I think even in your location, if someone's doing more, if they're focused more locally, what was I saying? If they're focused more locally, there are even so many more opportunities for you to expand and grow your market reach, especially in kind of the service-based business in what we do, where you're working with brands and you're doing consulting or working on strategies and stuff. There's no need to necessarily be tied down to.
But also to grow your thinking. Yes. But also to grow your thinking. And here's a crazy one for you. AI doesn't know everything. And I think there's this idea that I've seen it with certain people I've interacted with where they believe that they know everything. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. No, you don't. And I think there's something wonderful about listening and learning from other people. So there's a guy in our networking group called Sean Walchef. He's got a restaurant in California and a media company. And he's sort of changed sort of my view of how to use Instagram and LinkedIn. And he's got this great philosophy of be the show, not the commercial. And how many times do we see social media where people are selling? Sell, 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 sell. Where his policy is all about let's be the show rather than the commercial. This guy is somebody in San Diego. I'm in the USA. I'm in the UK. That's 8 time zones away. But his thinking has had a real impact on me. And that's the whole point of social media. You can learn so much, but I also think you can give a lot as well. And I just think this slightly different approach makes it a little less icky than the constant sales trail that I think a lot of people take.
Yeah, that's really good. So another question I was looking at is, you've mentioned AI a couple of times. Firstly, what are your thoughts on AI and the way people are using it? And let's start there. What are your thoughts about AI?
I think it's fascinating. I think AI, when it comes to, I'm going to put it in a content creation perspective, because that's sort of an area that I'm really interested in. I've mixed views on it. For a small business with no budget, it can be fantastic. It can, you can use it, and if you use it really well and effectively, it can help you with keywords. It can help you with content creation. I think when I see it used badly or sloppily, and the classic is there's a big difference between the UK and the US, and my favorite word is specialize. It has an S in it, but if you're in America, it's a Z, or Z as the American friends would say. And what's really interesting is when you see people who've used AI, certainly in some of my communities in the UK, you can tell it's written by AI. You can tell these people don't know the subject. And for me, I think that's really, really frustrating. So if you're going to put content out there, you need to be able to own it. And I think there is a hybrid balance where you can use AI potentially to create some of the structure for you and then make it your own. But for myself, I'm kind of old school. I like to write my own. I'm naturally a creative person. I parts of the content creation process, but I think other people are using and it's kind of a bit boring. And I have a mantra which is don't be boring. And I
Mm.
see people using AI in a way that is boring, certainly in some of my communities. Whereas I think you could do amazing things with it. I'm just not seeing that. I'm just not seeing it enough, I don't think.
What are some examples of the boring things that people do with AI?
Just a list of bullet points using different emojis. And it's like,
Uh,
okay, well, what do you actually believe? Like, how
that
is this
was a
going to help
thing
people?
before AI, though.
Do you know what? It's done so sloppily at the moment. It's done so sloppily. And I think there's this bit, there's so many amazing people with amazing thoughts. Well, share
Mm.
them. Share them. If you need AI to help you share those thoughts, that's fine. But just asking AI to create content for you, to me, it just seems like I get that there's time pressures, I get that there's budget pressures, but at least do it well. And I think for me, if I'm going to consume content, what's going to make me stop the scroll? Education? Yeah. Inspiration? Definitely. Humor? Great. I'm not sure AI fits that list yet. And I'm sure I've read posts that have been humorous, educational, inspiring that have been written by AI, and I haven't even noticed. I'm sure that is the case. But I like it when I see content that I feel has got a human touch.
Mm.
That's my own opinion and my own belief.
Yeah, that it kind of goes back to what you mentioned about, like, if you're going to put content out there, you have to stand behind it. And there's a difference between using the tool to refine the thoughts that you already have and
Yeah.
the thing that you want to say, the ideas that you want to spread, and asking AI to come up with the ideas for you. And that's kind of, I think, a space where people are playing in, where some people are just asking AI to come up with the ideas for them, and there are others that are using it more as a refining tool to kind of help them shape the ideas.
Which is great, which is
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. And I think there's that little bit where, if you've got original thought and all the rest of it, away you go. And, you could argue, should you use Grammarly to help you with your spelling and grammar? Well, I do. My spelling's not the best in the world. So having Grammarly is a gift. And
Mm.
I almost feel like there will be some people where AI will be the same. It will help get ideas from their heads and onto paper. I think there's a big difference in what you're saying. And for me, what's the content that's really going to add to somebody's life? What's the content that's going to make you stop and go, oh, that's fun? Or, oh, I've learned something there. Or that's really inspiring. I want to go and do something.
Yeah, that's actually out there. I think a lot of people don't might not realize that Grammarly and like Language Tool is one that I use. They are actually AI powered, and like they're spell checking things, but they have algorithms behind them that help them make suggestions and things. So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom. There's helpful ones out there. Uh, yeah. So something else I wanted to mention is what are ways that you create when you come to your content writing process, and you have this, okay, you have this mantra of, okay, don't be boring. Do you have a checklist that you go through, or is it like a process that you've created over the years that help you put something out there that's not boring?
It's interesting. I've worked with some amazing people all over the world, and I've worked with a fantastic person in the US called Elizabeth Doss. She creates GIFs and she's just a fantastic human being. And one of the things that I learned from her and another person she presents a show with called Stephanie Gills, they talk about content pillars, and some people call them content buckets. And for me, I like to have a little bit of structure when it comes to content creation. So I almost have three categories. And again, if anybody's vaguely curious and wants to go onto my Instagram or LinkedIn, you'll figure it out pretty quickly. but those categories sit in education, inspiration, and about us. So they're the three categories that I think allow me, that when I'm creating the content, that it fits into one of those three categories. I enjoy doing inspiration and education the most. The about us is the one where I go, oh gosh, do I have to? But I know I need to. And I think it's one of those ones where that part of content creation I feel is slightly harder for me when it comes to talking about myself. But having those pillars I find really, really useful. And then there's little things that, there's certain months where I might try and skew it to a theme. I've done a theme on coaching. I've beginning to touch on ADHD and autism, which is something that's interesting to me. There's also, themes that can be around marketing or branding or seasonal events, which I think immediately allow you to start thinking about the content. So for August, I know a lot of people are going to be on holiday or vacation, as our North American friends would say. So some of the posts, yes, there's going to be a bit of education and inspiration in there, but it might be a little bit more laid back, where another month I might approach the coaching and the mentoring side with a little bit more purpose behind it. And for me, it's about having the structure of posting 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The freedom, it's my own business. I can do what I want. It's kind of nice, that. And fitting it in those categories of education, inspiration, and about us. And I think there's some really fantastic examples of social media accounts that have got those content pillars that allow you to have the structure to create things with freedom. And one I would recommend everybody to look at is on Instagram, which is EL and N. And I call it the Pink Cafe. And it's a beautiful, beautiful account. The pictures are marvelous. But what's really interesting is if you actually look at it, there's a theme. In every one of their pictures is either a person, a product, or one of their restaurants. And having those content pillars so clearly defined is a really great example of how you can have structure that gives you freedom.
Oh, I've lost you. Are you there? Okay,
I'm
you
still here.
froze a bit. Would you mind repeating that last part?
Yeah, just the Elan, which is the cafe, and their photographs on their Instagram. It's really worth looking at the account. It's L ampersand N, and they have 3 content pillars. And all of their pictures fall into a picture of a person, a picture of a product, or a picture of their cafe and restaurant. And when you see those content pillars so clearly defined, I think it's a thing of beauty. And, it's certainly something that has inspired me with the education, inspiration, and about us. And it's having that freedom allows you to develop your own content.
Okay, so to summarize quickly, there are 3 ways to kind of give yourself a framework to make sure your content's not stale and boring. Is one, to have those content pillars or content buckets. For you, it would be education, educate, inspire, and then about us, so telling the world about yourself. And then you have that structure and also the freedom within that structure, like giving yourself permission to just try new things and do new things. And then themes, creating either set themes like the Pink Cafe, or having like monthly seasonal themes, and just giving yourself I think, like, as someone who creates content for myself and other people, I think having themes is very useful because it helps you just with coming up with ideas. It makes it so much easier when all the ideas are targeted towards one thing, and you know that, like, let's say for August, you can point things to a certain resource, or you can point things to a certain part of your business, like you mentioned with the coaching and sometimes the mentoring. And at the end of the day, when everything is done, you can then look back and your analytics give you more meaning, because now you're like, okay, I was pushing my coaching services all month and talking about coaching all month, and everything went down. And the next time when you're talking about, like, let's say branding or something else, and then you see, okay, there's a bit of a difference here.
Completely. One of the other things that I picked up from both Elizabeth, who I mentioned earlier, and Sean is documenting. Be the documentary, not the advert. And the perfect example was, I went to see a client yesterday, And in their factory and storage facility, they must have had 30 tons of peanuts. Just peanuts everywhere. It was amazing. I took a picture. And at some point, I'm going to use that picture in the future and tell a story about this incredible place that I went to visit. And I feel that there's this little bit of a trend at the moment that everything has to be done straight away. Yes, that's nice, but it's not always possible. So one of the things that I've become increasingly good at is when I go out with that mindset of documentary, not advert, just take some pictures. And I think one of the things that, and we go back to the thing about why people struggle on social media, is there's always this thing, right? How can I sell? How can I sell? How can I sell? Well, just tell stories. Tell stories. Tell stories about you in a fridge that was -5 with 30 tons of peanuts. It's kind of cool. And I think sometimes we've almost forgotten it's social media. Storytelling. Go tell stories. So one of the things that I've definitely done over the last 18 months, 2 years, is take pictures to remind me of those stories. And, we are all seeing the most incredible things. Incredible to us might not be to somebody else, but that's not for us to decide. Somebody might look at 30 tons of peanuts and go, I'm not sure about that. But to me, there's an incredible story that I can't wait to share.
Yeah. And when you take the pictures and you're kind of like bottling, I made this post a long time ago about bottling creativity, where it's like that thing where you're documenting your life and you're kind of storing up all these moments that made you go, wow, oh, da, 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 that gave you life. And you put it all into this bottle, hold your phone. And then when it's time to sit down and write, if you are blank and you're empty, you have like a well to draw from. You have space to kind of go from. And yeah, that's a great idea. Something else I wanted to point back to was what you mentioned about the pink cafe, where they have visual categories. So they have like and that I think is something too that is useful to think about. You can have your topics, the things you talk about, and then you can have your visual categories, the things that you like, the way that you visually make them look interesting, whether that's through video or through photos or whatever it is that people share. So yeah, like, and you can even make a bingo board, like the visual categories and the topics, and then just like make them all kind of make sure you get a bingo each month.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those ones where for me, it's about hopefully people listening to this will feel confident about creating their own content or be confident to work with the right people to help them. And for me, it's about storytelling and about giving yourself a structure that allows you to do it. If you have to do a post and you've not got any content, there's an idea of a panic post. Oh no, it's Monday, I need to do a post. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? If you've actually got a bank of content that you've created, you can find something. Or you've got a whole heap of stories. And I think this idea of the panic post is almost one of those moments where just don't do it. Just don't do it. Have a bank of stories that you can share, or have a bank of ideas that you can bring to the fore. And I think one of the things that I've certainly learned to do as part of my process is batch create, where actually can I create a lot of content in a morning and then drip it over the course of a month within that structure. Because if you try and do it, and I think it's quite interesting when people are advised to post daily and you end up spending half an hour a day doing content. Whereas actually, if you spend a morning a month doing it, then it becomes a lot easier. And it's almost having that structure. We go back to having that structure that allows you the freedom. So don't panic post.
You hear it here first, folks. Don't panic post. Something else that I wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap up is where we met, which was in LinkedIn Games. How have you? I found it interesting, like the way that you approach LinkedIn Games, that instead of just playing, you actually engage with people in the threads. Can you dive a bit into how you found these games? Not necessarily how you started playing them, but like how they've impacted your process and your experience on LinkedIn in the last few months.
It's been incredible, and it's been absolutely joyful. So I approached the games on LinkedIn as in this is going to be a nice, fun little distraction for 5 minutes in the morning. And it's now sort of become part of my morning routine where I'll block a little bit of time out and do my favourite game, which is pinpoint. And it started off where I managed to get a couple right, and I had this ambition to achieve it in one guess. So the game is they give you a clue and you have to guess the category. And you have 5 clues, and each clue you can put an answer, and if you get it right, way! My ambition was to do it in one, and I did it. It was like this moment of self-actualization. I'd read about it with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I thought, I've achieved it. And I was like, I want to do this again. I realized I'm an addict. I'm a pinpoint addict. So I kept coming back and back and back. And I just thought I'd comment on a few people, sort of, well done. And one of the things that I use on LinkedIn is I have my own GIFs. So there's little moving images. And so if somebody does well, I might give them a cheers or a get in there or a well done. It just brings a smile to people's faces. And I'd sort of done a couple where I got the answer right and sort of done a response to the person that hosted it. And then there was one day, and it all changed on this one. And I was on a Zoom call with my VA, and we were working together. And I was doing pinpoint, and I'm like, I've got it. And I've got it in 3. And they said, so I went to the 4th guess and got it correct. I was so annoyed. But annoyed in that kind of, it's first thing in the morning, I've not had a cup of tea, annoyed way. So I kind of did a ranty post back to LinkedIn going, as the self-proclaimed king of pinpoint, this is unacceptable. Like really, really tongue-in-cheek. And I kind of made a couple of comments in my response based on the clues. Didn't think anything of it. Had a meeting with a client, came back, and I'd had 20 comments, dozens of likes, and I was like, this has gone crazy. And we really, really had, and I looked at, because I had all these notifications, I was like really taken aback. And then something like 20 or 30 people had looked at my profile. And I started responding to people's comments, but sort of just being kind of using lots of puns and being a little bit piffy. Anyway, the next day, I thought I'll go with this king of pinpoint persona and just try and do it again. And the same thing happened. And I've been doing this for over a month and a half. And what's been incredible is the amount of people that have connected with me, the amount of conversations I've had with people. The fact that I'm doing a podcast with you is sort of taking me aback because we would never have met if it hadn't been for Pinpoint. But where it's really funny is the guy who, Pablo, I call him the games master. He's been commenting and responding to my posts. I've demanded a crown, and he's reassured me that they are currently looking for the right materials to make this crown. I have said that until I get my crown, I'm going to be continually emailing him, asking for it. But the results of it from a data perspective is I've had a laugh every day writing my piffy comments. It's kind of made LinkedIn fun, for sure. I've had hundreds and hundreds of people view my profile. I've had multiple new connections. And some of those people are now commenting on my posts for my business, which is amazing. And it helps me to spread my message. But also what I really hope is that when somebody's having their morning cup of tea or morning cup of coffee, that they go onto Pinpoint, they see my comment, and it just makes them smile. And that sort of brings me a great deal of joy. Question was on the Olympics, and I think it's already had 14 or 15 engagements. But what's really funny is the amount of people that use that laughing emoji, which I know caused uproar on LinkedIn. I mean, who would have thought you're not allowed to laugh at work, let alone at LinkedIn? Well, I like to challenge that convention.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. It's that specific post that I read it and I was like, oh my goodness, I have to check out this guy's profile. And then your headline says, don't be boring. I'm like, hey, a marketing person who says don't be boring. I'm going to use my people.
Yes. And I think, do you know what? I think if you are your true self, you attract the right people. You attract the right people into your life. You attract the right people into your business. And I want to work with customers and brands that are interesting, that need my help. And being interesting, you don't have to be a global brand.
Yeah.
You can be all kinds of different businesses. I feel very, very fortunate that I work with interesting people. I work with incredible products and propositions and people that want to do something different. And there was an advertising exec in the UK who said, when everybody zigs, you need to zag. So as everybody's gone down the boring route, I've gone, nah, that's not really my style. I want to work with interesting people, and you know, keep that mantra. And this is what we were talking about earlier about how you behave in and out of work, or how you behave in and out of social media. So we see LinkedIn as this serious business platform, but I can guarantee every single person has had a laugh at work.
Mm.
So why wouldn't you on social media? And by taking that approach, which wasn't some deliberate strategy, it wasn't me waking up one day saying, do you know what? I'm going to be the king of pinpoint, have hundreds of likes, spend 20 minutes a day replying to people's comments. And it wasn't some deliberate strategy. It wasn't written by AI. It was Rich just having fun, like I would do at work.
And I hope that you keep having fun. It was such a pleasure having you here, Richard, and being able to speak to you. How can people find you other than in the pinpoint thread every day?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn if they look for Richard Liverman, Liverman. I have a Instagram hashtag which is Richer Solutions Global, and I use a couple of hashtags on LinkedIn. One is Richer Solutions, the other is King of Pinpoint, which is causing me much of amusement at the moment because I'm now using that both on the game and on normal LinkedIn. But please just connect and have a conversation. That's how the world should be.
Yeah, that's how the world should be. And with that, we'll leave it at that. Please do share this, reach out to Richard and show him some Bright Space love. And hopefully he'll be back talking a bit more about branding because we didn't even get into that and your love of branding. So yeah, see you guys next week, same day, whatever time.
Bye, and thank you for having me.